There are only two feelings, love and fear. There are only two languages, love and fear. There are only two activities, love and fear. There are only two motives, two procedures, two frameworks, two results, love and fear, love and fear. No separation between life and death. Each moment, a return to home.
My name is Rose Tisnato, and I had terminal cancer.
Each in-breath, life.
I've just been, of course, trying to cope with it, and it's held a lot of surprises for me. You know, just kind of amazing surprises. I never expected it to be kind of such a joyous, in a certain way, experience. And one of the times that I'm supposed to be extremely miserable, I would say this is the most loving I've ever been in my life. I'm 57. You know, that's pretty remarkable. We're all going to die. It's not, you don't get out of it. Our culture, we don't like to face death. We don't talk about it. It's like people act like no one ever died before, and yet everyone dies. It's what we're here for, practically, in a weird, twisted way. That's why I have to prepare. Chodo's going to help me to prepare for when I'm not feeling so good, because it's not so easy then.
In my practice, in Buddhism, the basic teaching is that you come into the world, and guess what? You're going out. You know, there's no escape. So it's not so much a question of trying to get someone to the place of where they're accepting death, but to the place of being out of suffering around the death.
I'm just trying to be happy every day. It's not so much loss. I feel like, you know, I feel like I can move on to the next thing, you know, and I'm curious too. My head is clear. I want to live in this apartment until June when I move to the hospice residence.
Most people don't recognize their life as they're living it, but in actual fact spend a lot of time living a fantasy of their life. But without really recognizing what your life is, how can you face your death? That's my question. I mean, your death is kind of the culmination of your life. And death is a part of life. And to ignore that and to act as if that is not going to happen is not just foolish, but it's kind of a deprivation, really.
Fear is a family member afraid to touch someone who is sick. Fear is, I have a friend who's in the hospital, but I don't want to go because, you know, I once went to a hospital and I had a bad experience. Fear is, I don't want to die. So I think it's a whole range of things.
A patient I had who was dying, and I was speaking with her, and she couldn't speak at all, and she was trying to say something and mouthing something to me, and she reached out and grabbed me and pulled me into her body, basically, and she was dying, so she was pulling me into her death. To me, that was the most fear I have ever experienced, because it's like being pulled into hell. And it took me a while in that grip, because she wasn't letting go, to realize I had to let go in the space of her dying, to be present to her dying. And as soon as you do that, or as soon as I did that, the fear disappeared, and what's left is intimacy and love for her.
When people are able to enter the phase of dying with an open heart and an open eye, it is a powerful, wonderful experience for them too.
I cried actually more moving than I did when I heard I had cancer. And it was a quick move. I had to move from one day to the next. It was fast. I really never cried that much. It's about your function, how you're functioning, how is, I just wanted to be in the now. You gotta have hope.
I remember one of the first things I said to Rose was, so Rose, how does it feel like to be dying? What does it feel like to be dying? She's like, bring it on.
I want to see the snowfall. I want to see October. I wanted to have a winter coat in my closet to prove to myself that I maybe, to be optimistic. And then hopefully I'll be able to see winter maybe. We don't know how fast this is going to progress. I was just trying to live day by day, but I'm not cured, and then I'm going to die.
Hi, Rosie, it's your mama, calling to see how you're doing. I'll call later. Bye-bye.
My mother is 83 years old. When she calls, she's not, she puts on her best face. But we both try hard. You know what? I think at this point, I'm just ready to say, whatever happens, happens.
Rose was, for me, the pinnacle of my experience of the work that I do. She was fearless in her life. And when I met Rose, she showed me what it means to be fearless of death. Chodo, she would say to me, don't hold back. That, to me, is worth everything that I do. That is everything that I do. There's no more than that.
Dying has been left to a technology and to science and technology and has totally lost the human and spiritual and compassionate aspect. And when we're dying, more than any other time, do we need people to listen to us, people to hold our hand and be present to us, and to say stop sometimes when the technology is out of hand.
I think we've forgotten as a culture how to really take care of people and how to come from a very quiet place inside ourselves to reach out and to touch another person, to care.
Right now, we're training chaplains to work with people who are dying or who are in very difficult situations.
There's not a patient in the bed. It's about how do you care for the whole system.
There is a different way to be with someone. It's not always about fixing and just being there.
Whatever is needed, I try to be present for. I help them be intimate.
There are only two feelings, love and fear. There are only two languages, love and fear. There are only two activities, love and fear. There are only two motives, two procedures, two frameworks, and two results, love and fear.
Every time I walked out of the hospital, the first probably 2 months or 3 months, I cried. I just went into that little park across from Beth Israel and sat down and cried. And now when I walk out, no matter how difficult it's been, I'm just filled with joy.
I've got so much more appreciation in this program about living. I really appreciate the health I have, and I want to maintain it for as long as possible.
When Roshi came to give one of the Dharma talks, and she said, you stay until you leave. And you leave simply because you have somewhere else to go. And I said, all the guilt of my divorce, right right down the drain. I just had someplace else to go. Now I get it.
Probably the biggest lesson that I've learned is the importance of one person, that one person can make. Walking into a prison, whether it's walking into a hospital room or a hospice, it's life-changing. It's life-changing for the person that walks in.
It's a marvelous opportunity to make a difference in the world. I encourage you to continue your practice, whatever form it takes. What will change as a result of what you have touched? Through meditation and through all the different types of exercises and works and supervision and the group forum, all this has utterly, utterly changed you.
My first unit when I left the monastery was at NYU, and the first day on the first CP unit, my supervisor at that point gave me a referral to an emergency room, and I remember standing in front of that door, and you had to press the press thing to have the door open up, and I couldn't do it. I was terrified. A nurse came by and she said, "Do you want me to press it for you?" And I said, "No, I'll do it." And I remember pressing it, and that door opening up, and there was complete madness and chaos on the other side of that door. And I remember stepping across the threshold into that space and realizing that, in seminary school they would say you had a calling. And at that moment I realized I had to be present to whoever it was in front of me. And I walked in, and it wasn't a problem after that.
There aren't already, contemplative care centers in every single neighborhood in the city. Ideally, every neighborhood would have that instead of a Starbucks, maybe, or next to the Starbucks.
The thing that we think is missing, and we've witnessed in our own training, in our own volunteer work before we created this program, was that, again, that willingness to take the training, the medical training, out for a moment and allow your whole person to come in.
We're going to be the first organization to have a Buddhist fully accredited chaplaincy program, so people can be really well trained on a professional level. And in a couple of years, we'd like to see ourselves in its own facility where we can offer a guest house for people at end of life and their families, and to have an education center and a Dharma hall where people can come and practice. So some people may just want to come there to meditate, or some people might want to volunteer to sit at someone's bedside, or someone might want to train, so to offer a place where that people can enter in many ways.
Intimacy is at the heart of what I do. Being present for others, we call it active listening. Listening with, in a Zen way, you would say listening with the whole body and mind. That it's not just the ears that listen, but every pore of your body is actively open to receive and listen to another person. To be present to another suffering, to sit and bear witness to another, whatever they're going through, whatever journey they're taking, you desire to be with them on that journey.
For me, why it's important to spend time with the dying is to really appreciate how it's really about living, and that it's really about that we don't have much time, and that this life is finite, and we are constantly moving in that direction, moment by moment. Our time is precious, and it's really appreciating our life. And so working with dying people is just this incredible mirror for us to look at our life and realize, oh, it's always going, This is so precious. This person was once a baby. Now this 103-year-old woman in the bed taking her last breath. She was once a baby, like that whole span of life is kind of all right there.
To have that kind of way of being in the world is what will make the whole world a more harmonious place.
Love for me is that you become open and more willing to show your love, because people are afraid to show love for various reasons. You're putting yourself on the line by showing love. But, when people are giving you love, you can't help but give it back. It's a totally reciprocal thing.